Okay, thanks very much. I was just checking to make sure that I had silenced all my alarms. You know how hard it is. We had a really interesting opportunity yesterday in that we had a wedding here at KTC. And yeah, surprise, right? And it's a person from outside the congregation who was a supporter but doesn't attend regularly. But it was just a wonderful opportunity to host a wedding because the bride-to-be was Buddhist, family not. But once she saw the shrine room, it was like, I have to have my wedding here. So all the partying was done elsewhere. Yeah, our policy is no alcohol, no meat. So people who want to have their pepperoni pizzas and cold brews have to go someplace else. But we had about 30 people in this room who would otherwise have never been here. And they were touched by the beauty of the place and by the simplicity of the ceremony, because the couple had asked for something very, 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 very simple. And so I just wanted to mention this to say that it's wonderful to be part of the neighborhood. We are part of our greater neighborhood here in downtown Columbus, and it feels good. We've been on this property since 1990, when we bought the old little church that was here. I met the people who went to this church when we purchased it, and they said that it had been built in the little church that sat on this property that we bought was built in 1924. It's the year my mother was born. It's the year Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, the founder of our center, was born. And so it had a little age on it, and the roof continuously leaked. And in fact, we were in process of trying to figure out what to do with the old building when there was the arson fire in 2016, and we had to make another plan. But out of that came this building, which I see now as kind of a blessing in disguise, that we now have this opportunity to share this wonderful facility with the neighbors. And we do this every week because in the very small world of neighborhood activities, we host recovery groups here on Monday through Thursday. 3 different groups on 4 different nights. It's a good feeling. And we also host events by other groups. In fact, we had the Community Shelter Board here for a meeting, a public hearing, actually. And we also had the Franklinton Board of Trade, which is our own neighborhood chamber of commerce. They've been here several times in the community room for meetings. In addition, we've also hosted the Columbus Landmarks Foundation. They said they wanted to be here because even though they are interested in historic structures mainly and preserving historic structures in Columbus, they said, we kind of feel like this structure is going to be historic in the future. I think they were really just curious. So part of the reason I'm talking about the neighborhood and our place in it is because that theme is included in what I want to talk about today. Because I have a ready list of things to talk about when I don't know what to talk about. And by the way, there will be an audience participation at the end of today's program you can start thinking about now. I will be taking new suggestions of things that you would like to hear about. I know, how many pastors do that? That's interesting, but you can, I have several friends who are Christian ministers, and I always like to tell them, you really should do Q&A. You'd learn a lot, but Somehow they're just not into it. Something about the format not allowing for that. But anyway, part of the reason that I had this on my list of topics for today about becoming a citizen of the world, that was my last idea, which is why I'm going to ask you for help when this is over. But part of the reason I wanted to talk about that is because people ask often, what do you Buddhists do? What do you do? Because everybody's sitting, and they got their eyes closed sometimes. Do you guys do anything? Or you just sit there? And I said, what I would say to a person who said that would be, if they've ever tried to sit quietly on their own without a technique, they would know why we do this. Because the mind is wild. It runs. And until we give it a technique or a strategy, it just goes wee. And it makes us, I don't want to say, I'm speaking for myself, makes me a little crazy. And so this is why when it looks like we're sitting and not doing anything, there's actually a lot going on. There's actually a lot going on. Memories, problems, good things, bad things. All of them are rolling across the screen, if you want to use that analogy. And the meditator just hangs in there with it, like a surfer trying to ride that wave, not fall off, by noticing, touching, acknowledging, and letting go. That's what the practice of mindfulness meditation is all about. Sitting, noticing, letting go, and returning over and over again. So we're actually quite busy here, but the majority of people wouldn't necessarily understand that. So instead of just saying, oh, we're working with our thoughts when you think we're just sitting there doing nothing. So when they ask, what do you guys do? I say, well, we practice mindfulness so that we can have better activity in the world, so we can be better people for ourselves, our family, and the world. We can show up for ourselves, our family, and the world in a way we couldn't before we started meditating, in a mindful way, in a positive way, in a kind and loving way, because this is what Buddhism teaches. It teaches us to take responsibility for our own thoughts, words, and actions. It tells us to try to infuse those thoughts, words, and actions with, at the very least, nonviolence, and at the very best, compassion and love. So that's what we're about, and that's what we do. We work with ourselves so that we can show up for ourselves, our families, and the world. So today I'll be talking about the world part, because many of us already see the benefits and value of meditation in our everyday life. I can't count the number of times I've had people say to me, meditation, no joke, changed my life. Because they were able to be with themselves in a way that was not judgmental. I just want to say that again because of how important it is. Frequently, when we are with ourselves, we are judgmental. I don't know about you, but this is me. Like, oh, I did that thing wrong, or oh, I did that thing wrong, or oh, this person doesn't like me, or oh, I just made this mistake and I can't forgive myself for it, and so on. But if we learn how to work with the mind inside ourselves, we can begin to work with our own feelings and thoughts. And as we work with our own feelings and thoughts, surprise, we come to understand the feelings and thoughts of other people. Because at some point in our meditation journey, we begin to realize that everybody's just like us. I know sometimes when we're sitting and meditating, people tell me, that other person over there or that other person over there, they're probably having a good meditation. I'm having a fight. I'm having a tug of war with my habits and a tug of war with my memories. But The answer is, nah. We all have our own struggles in meditation, and we can't judge. But meditation teaches us non-judgment. Because those thoughts, whatever thoughts they are, come up, we notice them, but we don't sit down and have a coffee with them. We don't say, oh yeah, tell me more about yourself. We just basically see the thought as it arises, and we touch it with our attention, and then we set it aside and return to the technique of watching the object of meditation, whether it's the breath or maybe one of the statues or whatever our object of meditation is. As we return, we become less judgmental. And it kind of wears, because, eventually you wear out your judgment. Because it's because the teaching always says, come back gently. Come back gently without judgment. Come back gently. All over and over and again. Anything you do over and over again slowly becomes part of your regular habit. And so, in a way, this is where the, if you want to call it activism of Buddhism, begins. It begins on the seat, taming ourselves without judgment. Just taming our thoughts without judgment. Accepting our thoughts without judgment. There's some people standing out there, it's like, you can come in, it's okay. Yeah. You can come in, it's okay. Yeah, okay. He's like, nah, we're just passing through. Okay. It's lovely. I love what we have here, and I thank all of you for that. But anyway, so once again, I've started the talk without starting the prayer. Just call me enthusiastic. But we'll pick up after we recite them. It's a Buddhist thing, We try to start our activities with a prayer or with an intention. So we'll recite this refuge prayer 3 times, 2 times in English, so we can have the meaning of it anchored inside of us, and then we'll chant it once in Tibetan for the blessing of reading it in the language it was written in by an enlightened being, no doubt. So it begins with the words in the Buddha. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the assembly most excellent, I take refuge until I reach enlightenment. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I achieve enlightenment for the sake of all beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the assembly most excellent, I take refuge until I reach enlightenment. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I achieve enlightenment for the sake of all beings. Now we'll chant. O Sanjay Chudan Soki Chonamla Jangchu Pardu Dani Kyapsuchi Daji Jinso Jipe Sunamki Drola Penchir Sanjay Druparsho. Okay, thank you. O Palden Sawe Lama Rinpoche Tagi Chior Pede Den Shala Kadrin Jimbo Goneche Sunte Kusum Tugging a Drup Sal to Soul. Okay, thanks. So, what do we Buddhists do anyway? As I mentioned, it starts with becoming more mindful. It starts with becoming aware of our thoughts, words, and actions, and trying to make those thoughts, words, and actions come, as I mentioned before, at least from a place of nonviolence, but ideally from a place of love and compassion. And so you, you might wonder where that takes us. Where does that take us in terms of our action in the world? Well, let's go beyond mere mindfulness, sitting meditation, and go to the next phase of meditation that we learn here at this center. Our teacher, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, remember the one born in 1924 who came here in 1976 and started teaching Western people Tibetan Dharma. He was in the first wave of Buddhist teachers who came here in the 1970s. The first Tibetan teachers came here in the 1970s. Although you could say it was the 1960s because the Dalai Lama's brother came in the mid-60s to teach at Indiana University, but that's a whole nother kettle of tofu. We'll address that later. But he was in this first wave, and so he had to figure out how to take a tradition that's 1,000 years old and 2,500 years old if you go all the way back to Buddhist India. But the Tibetan tradition of Buddhism is about 1,000 years old. And he had to figure out how to apply it in a completely different language, country, society, time than the agrarian past that he had grown up in. So what he chose to do was to teach us 3 styles of meditation: quiet sitting and mantra meditation. But in the middle, between the two, he wanted us to learn compassion meditation. So that's how he trained us. He trained us to sit quietly and try not to judge ourselves. And then after that, he taught us to be compassionate for ourselves and for others. And then finally, he taught us how to uncover our own inner Buddha essence through the practice of mantra and visualization. So these 3 yanas, or paths, are what is referred to in our Tibetan name, Tek Sum. First name is Karma, that's our family name, meaning we're of the Karma Kagyu tradition. Tek Sum means 3 paths. Basic Buddhism, foundational Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, and then Vajrayana Buddhism. So we learned, he taught us one thing from each, and that really helped us to stay structured. So after accomplishing the teaching of basic meditation, he taught us how to develop compassion. Now, he taught a method that's slightly more complex than the one I'm going to talk to you about today, but it's based on the same idea. That after we've calmed our mind a little bit in meditation and stopped this kind of the uncontrolled flow of thoughts while we're sitting on the cushion. Can't do it off the cushion, but on the cushion we can get a little bit of experience with that. We can have moments where we feel like we can work with our thoughts. But on our cushion, it's a good time to train in new behaviors. We're unlearning old bad habits, and now it's time to learn new behaviors. So the practice of compassion meditation involves using thoughts. Instead of setting them all aside, you cultivate specific thoughts, not any thought, just specific ones. And the specific ones that we're cultivating are sending love and goodness out to the rest of the world. And I guess you could say this is the second way we become a good citizen in the world. First is by working on mindfulness and non-judgment. And the second way we become a good citizen of the world is by developing compassion for ourselves and others. So in the compassion meditation practice, as you still follow your breath, if you're familiar with breath awareness meditation, you know how it all works. By following the breath in and following the breath out, we become more aware of our processes internally. That's the meditation of mindfulness, the basic mindfulness. But what if you take that basic breath awareness, mindfulness meditation, and add an intention to your breath as it goes out? And so this is the basis and foundation for compassion meditation. The simplest form of compassion meditation is called metta. I can't remember if metta is Pali or Sanskrit, but it means loving kindness. And it is a way of sitting on your seat, and as you breathe out, you think you give goodness to all beings. You can do it in stages, according to my teacher. You can start with yourself. Perhaps you've had a rough day. Perhaps things have not gone your way at home or at work. Perhaps you're just feeling tired and depleted. So place yourself in front of you. Close your eyes and imagine that you are sitting right there in front of you. And as you breathe out, you give yourself healing, compassion, love, goodness. And you do this for a little while. My teacher didn't say how long, but he said, keep it short, because it's easier if you keep it short. Just not very long at all, he said, but he never gave us a time. I tell people 1 minute, 2 minutes, just kind of go to your tolerance. So first you send the kindness and love to yourself. Then you send the kindness and love. You imagine your loved ones. Even if you can't see them all, just know they're there. And as you breathe out, you think you give all that goodness to them. You extend it to them. And then after that, you can think that you give it to all the people in the city, the state, the nation, the world, the universe, in ever-widening circles. And this way, we become a citizen of the world in that we first start with ourselves, giving ourselves goodness, and then those we are close to, then those we're farther from, and then those we are really far from. Maybe even including people we don't like so much. People say, how do I deal with people I don't like? I said, just put them in the background. They'll be part of the nameless, faceless crowd, and maybe you won't think about them too much, but you'll give them some love, And then my teacher said that after you complete this practice of sending love to yourself, then to others, and then to everyone, he said, then just let go. Don't worry about the visualization. Just let it go. And it's gone. And he said, and just sit for a moment and don't do anything. Just rest in that moment of having done the practice, which is itself a form of meditation, just sitting for a moment in that. So that's called metta. Now, for people who are, I love it, I always love it when the Arnold is here, the Arnold competition for bodybuilding and sport. Because I always wonder if we're going to get some bodybuilders coming and visiting us on the Sunday, but so far not. But they know about training. These women and men who train for these competitions, they know about training, and they know how training works. And so sometimes we have to just sit on our seat and mentally extend love and compassion to ourselves, even if we don't feel like it. And this is how we become a citizen of the world. Another way in which we become a citizen of the world is by mentally extending ourselves to all beings. But the other reason I mentioned the Arnold was because you know how strength training is. You start with a goal and then you have a stretch goal. Okay, well, the stretch goal in compassion meditation is being able to think about removing suffering from other people. Now, we all know we can't do this. We can't actually remove suffering from other people. It's not possible. But it's also probably not possible to literally give our love and compassion to everybody. We're kind of training ourselves so that in the future we're able to do it. But I don't know how much they're feeling it, But if you have a stretch goal, if you want to do a stretch goal in your compassion meditation, you'll reach for the practice called Tonglen, which is called sending and receiving. Where as you breathe out, same, as my Tibetan friends like to say, same, you just send out that love and compassion. But as you breathe in, you remove the pain and suffering of the other person, starting with yourself. Like remember that bad day you just had that you're trying to help yourself get over? Well, as you breathe out, you give yourself healing. As you breathe in, you accept the feelings you have and make an aspiration that you can work with them. And so that's how you do this stretch goal of Tonglen, or sending and receiving meditation. You send out goodness on the out-breath and remove suffering on the in-breath. At first, this seems a little bit counterintuitive. In fact, I will never forget the first time I taught this in Montreal, because there was a guy in the audience, At the end of the Tonglen, where we talked about sending out goodness and removing negativity, I can just remember it plain as day. The guy said, "Oh, my martial, that sounds weird." He says, "My martial arts teacher told us that we should breathe in the strength of others and breathe out to them all of our bad karma." I'm like, not exactly Buddhist. So anyway, get the idea. So, by doing this, also for a short period of time, just for a few minutes, short period of time, you can gradually not just strengthen your capacity to imagine loving yourself and imagine loving others. You can actually increase your capacity to feel compassion for others and for yourself. The Buddhist definition of love is the wish for others to be happy, and the Buddhist definition of compassion is the wish for them to be free of suffering. And so, at the very least, we're working on these wishes in our heart and developing the wish in our heart, even if we can't really take on the sufferings of others, because we can't. My teacher used to talk about this. He said, "Now I know some people, they worry about doing this practice because they might think it's going to hurt them." He said, "But I've been teaching this practice for a very long time, and I've never had anybody die from it." He said, or really even get sick. He said, maybe if you're scared of the practice, the fear might make you sick. So maybe you should go easy, but he said, so far, nobody's been harmed. But we have to practice, we have to train, because if we don't practice and don't train, we will never improve. The women and men of the Arnold know that. If you don't train, you don't improve. So this is the second way we become a citizen of the world, by training in love. First is taming ourselves and our thoughts, words, and actions, and the second is by learning how to extend love to ourselves and others. But there's still one more way that we can become a citizen of the world, and that's through that third kind of meditation, mantra and visualization. The practice of mantra and visualization may seem unusual to people, but again, to use the athlete analogy, the Olympics just happened recently, and the Winter Olympics happened just recently in Italy, and everybody was talking about how athletes train. They don't just physically train, they mentally train. And part of their mental training is to imagine themselves doing the activity and completing their sport successfully. And so this idea of thinking about it before you do it this is called visualization. You think about doing it before you actually do it. And in Buddhism, this consists of visualizing Buddhas, enlightened beings, that are iconographically represented by the statues on our shrine. But there are also scroll paintings that depict the Buddha and his many saints. And the many saints of Buddhism, Buddha and the many saints of Buddhism. And by visualizing them, we can think about the fact that we might actually possess those qualities in ourselves. Tara, the protectress, we might actually see that we have those qualities of her and ourselves. Chenrezig, the peaceful embodiment of compassion. We may, as we visualize him, think about those qualities in ourselves, and so on. Medicine Buddha for healing, and so on. And by visualizing these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, not only are we not paying attention to the things we're trying to tame in mindfulness, but we're also taking the love and compassion and expanding it by thinking, what would it be like to be a Buddha? What would that be like? Wow, being a Buddha, that means that everything you do would actually have a positive impact on everyone around you, because there's no more egotism driving what you say and do, because you've achieved freedom from egotism. That's what Buddhahood is. Freedom from ego fixation, freedom from selfishness and everything that goes with it. Now, as you can imagine, Buddhahood is rare, But even the path to it is a path of happiness and understanding. Even if we never become a Buddha in this lifetime, using our imagination to imagine being one is, for many people, the next best thing. So in this third phase of meditation, we become a citizen of the world in two ways. One, we imagine being the Buddha, because that's what happens near the conclusion of these meditations, is that the Buddha that we visualize outside of us blesses us in some way. Perhaps they shine light on us, perhaps. There's a set way to do all of these meditations. Some involve the Buddha being over our heads, some involve the Buddha being in front of us, but eventually they shine a purifying light on us in our imagination. We imagine they shine a purifying light on us, and they dissolve away all of those faults and failings we have, and we are then revealed to be an awakened being ourselves in their same shape and form. We look like Tara. We look like Chenrezig. We're made of light. We're not made of flesh and blood anymore. We imagine that, which in a way is a way of talking about our own essence, because it all comes down to mind. Because the Buddha said, we are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts, and with our thoughts we make the world. So that means that as we think, so we become. So if we can think about being a Buddha, imagine being a Buddha, how wonderful. And in the meditation, frequently, not always, but frequently, the meditation includes us imagining that lights come from our form as Chenrezig or Tara and benefit others. And the lights return to us, and then they go out again and benefit others, and then they come back to us. So we're becoming citizens of the world here in a way that we can do without worry and without fear. We can just imagine giving everything to the world over and over and over again, because now we're a Buddha, so we can do that, just out and so forth. That's one way to become a citizen of the world, is to extend the enlightened love and compassion of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to others. But the second way is through offering. And this is something that some people might find a little peculiar about Tibetan Buddhism, but it actually goes back to the time of the Buddha. There are many stories in the sutras, which are the words of the Buddha and the stories of the Buddha, that talk about the Buddha's interaction with powerful spirits that live in their locality. And so, for example, those of you who are familiar with Native American spirituality will know that there is a belief that this world is chock full of life. This world is full of life, animals, insects, birds, fish, but it's also filled with non-human beings. That's the world of the native spirituality. But believe it or not, lots of other people have these beliefs too, and they were all over the place at the time of the Buddha. In fact, many Hindu rituals dealt with working with spirits. Now, whether we believe in spirits or not, you don't have to, it's not required. But the Buddha did. And so, and because he actually had chats with them, the non-seen beings. There's a famous story about how the Buddha came to a village because he was a wandering teacher, and he had all of his disciples with him. And a woman came to him and said, you know, the children in our village are dying, and we think it's that an evil spirit is snatching our children away. And the Buddha, kind of looked at her and said, I'm sorry to hear this is happening. Let me see if I can help you. And then through his meditation, he was able to discern that there was indeed a spirit harassing the community. And he had a chat with her. And she said, look, I got children, and I got to feed them, so I have to take this life essence away from others so that my children can eat. So she said, I can't stop doing this. And he said, but you must. You're making bad relationship with the whole neighborhood. And she said, no, I can't feed my kids. And he said, wait a minute. He said, I have an idea. He said, "This is what I will tell all of my followers to do from now until the end of time. The monastic followers, all of them, my monastic followers everywhere in the world, will be asked after every meal," and they have one, the monastic followers generally have the one meal at the noon hour. "I will ask them to take some rice or other food and squeeze it in their hands, and then leave it on a dish outside the monastery or outside the compound. And you and your children and everyone else can enjoy it." And she said, "That's a deal." So this practice, which the Tibetans call changbu, or this impression of, usually it's rice, but it can be other things. In the U.S., when the Tibetans first got here, they found that white bread was perfect. Might not be healthy for the animals, but it's really... And they would dedicate it to these beings. Now, you might think, well, that's kind of backward and superstitious. But here, it was a problem brought to the Buddha. What was he going to do? So he had a chat. He had a chat with the spirit herself. So because he could do this in his understanding, he could see them and talk to them. He had a conversation, made a deal, and started a tradition of offering that has continued for 2,500 years. Every day, at the end of the monastic meal, there's still this changbu offered. So that's another way that we Buddhists become citizens of the world. Because the more responsible we become for ourselves and our own behavior, the more loving we train ourselves to become, the more we become aware of others in our world who don't have what they need. And we feel sorry for them. We feel like we want to help them. And so we do. And the Tibetans really sort of took this practice and perfected it. In fact, so much so that that when I went into 3-year retreat in 1993, when I went into 3-year retreat, we were taught 4 offering practices. One for the early morning, one for the late morning, one for the afternoon, and one for the evening. And we thought about all of the beings suffering in the world. We thought of all the beings suffering in the universe. And that was our guest list for the offering. We would actually invite every being, seen and unseen, in the entire universe to be present in front of us. And we would imagine giving them offerings. It would be in whatever form of offering they needed. If they needed food, it was that. If they needed shelter, it was that. If they needed, whatever they needed, we would imagine they received it. And what was the medium for making this offering? We didn't do this one because, we weren't strict monastics. We didn't do the changbu offering. But we did these other 3. The morning is pouring out water. Okay, you pour out water in a dish and you put it out. And you imagine feeding all of those beings who are hungry in the world, no matter where they are and no matter what shape or form they are in, feeding them with the water. And you put that out. Then, after the morning session of meditation, you would light incense and put it outside. And smoke would go up, and you would imagine that became offerings of everything that beings in the universe needed. In the evening, in the late afternoon, you'd put another stick of incense out, and you'd imagine giving to all beings in the universe. And in the late evening, you would visualize giving away everything you have, everything you possess, to all beings. So, we learned how to do this in 3-year retreat. And for some people, it was a little tough. I know of one person who said, this is just a bunch of Tibetan folklore and nonsense. I'm like, fair. But there are so many things we don't see in this world. We don't see hatred. We don't see hatred, but we see its effects. We don't see anger, but we see its effects. And we don't see love, but we see its effects. So there are so many unseen things in our world. We may as well use our imagination to imagine that our offering is not just for ourselves or for the people we love, but goes to everyone, everywhere, no matter what. No exceptions. Our love is as wide as the world, and we want it to be there. So if you come to the KTC on a Sunday and you see the morning incense offering being made out the back door, thank you to the Green Tara team for doing that. Or if you come in the afternoon sometime on the third Sunday when we do the protector chant, and we put little tormas made of oatmeal and flour, oatmeal and water and butter out for the animals. You know, we're doing our level best to be citizens of the world. We are now taking we're taking in our own way responsibility, not just for ourselves, but for the rest of the world. We're becoming citizens of the world by doing this. And yes, it's only in our minds. Of course, it's imaginary. It's in our minds. But where does everything begin? Every idea begins in the mind. So if we at least have the idea, then maybe in the future when we become Buddhas, we can make it so. I'm just saying. So, okay, I'm looking at my clock and I'm thinking, okay, it's time for me to stop talking and to invite you, if you have thoughts or questions either about this talk, or if you have suggestions about things you would like to hear me talk about in the future, I'm ready. You can use the 2 microphones. 2 mics, no waiting. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, there you go. And you can even aim it down to yourself.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hi, everybody. Probably you know me. I talked to you a couple of times. And I'm here to share something because your talk was so inspired for me. Probably a few of you know that I lost my dad, and I've been struggling quite a lot after a year. And today, when I listened to you, I realized something really, really important. So you were saying at the beginning that you host meetings in here. I'm gonna say we, because I feel now part of this community, so we host. And my dad, he was an AA person for probably 40 years plus. And he used to say, when someone forgets about the money or is more generous about money, then that person is gonna be feeling more free. And when you're talking about giving back, he will always teach me, you do the best you can do to help someone. Go and visit sick people. Even though you don't know them, go to the hospitals and bring them your ears at least. Or plant a tree. That's great for the environment. Or put water for the birds. And if he had like $1 in his pocket and he would see a homeless, he would give everything that he had in his pocket to that person. So pretty much is what you are teaching us today. And I honestly think he was Buddhist in his deep being, because he was like that. And I just wanted to show that with you, and thank you. Thank you so much for your talk.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing the story of your father. Yeah, it's amazing the effect that they have on us now. And it's really beneficial because we get to live their memory, right? So thank you. Okay, yes.
Hi, Lama Kathy. Thank you for the talk.
Yeah, it'll get there. There we go, yeah.
I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
So I've been struggling. I've been reading the different books that you recommended, and one of my suggestions it will be one of the. How could you help us deal with our ego, letting go our ego?
Okay.
I read something about the no self.
Yeah.
But there's a chapter, and I read a couple of times, and it still is hard to understand it. But
Yeah.
I would love to hear you do a talk about that.
Yeah, I appreciate the suggestion because because my college degree was in journalism, I'm always thinking of stories, something to explain, right? So I would see two talks here. One would be no self, and like, what does that even mean? And the other is, how do we get there? So I think it's like that. So it'd be two. So you help me two ways. So thank you. Yes, hi.
Good morning. I would like to add to your list how to recognize the manifestation of our karma in the present moment.
Oh, okay. I like that one. Okay. I'm writing it down. Okay. Well, I tell you what. Yep. And here's the thing. It takes where are you at? Oh, there you are. It takes I'm dazzled by the light. It takes a while to be able to do it in the moment. So this will be my short introduction. It takes a lot of practice to be able to do it right in the moment, to recognize it right in the moment. But we can start the process for sure. Thank you for that. Yeah. See, I knew you guys were good. Yes.
My suggestion would be to talk about like human nature, because I look at like everything that you talked about today, the beauty and the love and compassion, and then I think of all the cruelty in the world, and especially now, and the evil and stuff like that. Like, what is the Buddhist perspective on humanity, I guess?
Yeah, I get it. Ooh, that's a really good one. Okay, yeah. Because, one of the things that I think of immediately is the corrosive impact of media. Because, again, I came from there. I came from media, so I'm instantly thinking of the corrosive effect of media. But there's lots of other things to talk about because we already have, I joke around saying that as human beings, we have a full set of criminal tools. We can do bad with this body. We have a full set. We can do bad or we can do good. So now how do we fix that? How do we make that choice? But that's just part of what I think you're asking about. And we can definitely, this may also be two talks. So, how it is and what to do. Okay, see, you guys are good, see? Yeah. What I used to do when I was a writer, and I worked for a daily newspaper, and so I had to come up with ideas every day. And because I was a feature writer, and so if I was ever out of ideas, I would just walk around the downtown of my small town that I was in. And I'd come up with like 10 ideas just by walking downtown and letting my mind rest. Just letting my mind go and looking at everything and being present with the neighborhood, the place, the downtown. And it's just like, oh, okay, well, what about this and what about that? So sometimes they came to me in meditation too, but my teacher would say, Ixnay. Yeah, yes.
Thank you, Lama Kathy.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but I want some.
I get it.
I don't even know the name for it, but it's seeing things as they are. Mm-hmm. And
Got it.
I understand that at the end of the meditation, you can kind of look for it or whatever. So
Yeah.
please give me some.
Getcha. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I got it. There's like an outer and an inner. See, this may only be one talk, but it's got two prongs, because there's seeing how things are in the outer world, but then there's also seeing how things are in the inner world. It's related to the discussion of letting go of ego and the no self. And I think that one is an intellectual idea, but then the other is a lived experience, a felt experience, a lived experience. And I totally understand that And you know, what one of my teachers said is that what we are doing, and I've talked about this before, but I haven't talked about it the way you're talking about it, which I think is good, is that we lack certainty as human beings. No, not a single person knows when they're going to die. Nobody knows that. And that lack of certainty is sort of foundational, and it makes us do weird things. That lack of certainty makes us do weird things, not the least of which is believing in conspiracy theories, but that's a whole nother topic. But seeing things as they are, and I understand why you want some, because to me, perspective is everything. And if we can have perspective on things, then they become right-sized in our minds. Okay, yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I sure hope I remember all that.
Well, you know what? I wrote it down for you, so we're good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And so when I give the talk, it'll come out, hopefully. Sometimes I look at my notes afterward, and I'm going, what? Where was I going with that? Yeah. Okay. Perspective. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, hi.
Hi, Lama Kathy.
Yeah.
Maybe it could be a very big topic, but I was interested in the Great Perfection, Dzogchen.
Oh, yeah,
Maybe
okay.
it's a very big topic.
Yeah,
but there's a
I
lot
could
of,
definitely talk about that.
the book that I'm reading is very dense, and I'm very confused as I'm reading through it.
Which book are you reading right now?
I'm reading this book called Dzogchen by Alan Wallace.
Oh, sure, understood. Yeah, Alan Wallace he's a genius at being able to explain things, but great perfection is very tough. Dzogchen is very hard. See, here's the thing, just for a little backgrounder, there are 4 traditions of Tibetan Buddhism that still exist in the world today. 5 if you count the shamanism, which was the basic religion of Tibet before Buddhism got there. I love the way the Dalai Lama refers to them as the 5 traditions of Tibet, the 4 Buddhist ones, and the Bön tradition, which is the shamanistic tradition. So all of them have different things they emphasize. I don't know anything at all about Bön, but I do know a little bit more about the 4 Buddhist ones. The Sakya and the Gelug, those 2, they emphasize learning and scholarship. And what they have you learn is they have you learn about emptiness from a cycle of teachings called the Great Middle Way, Madhyamaka. And it's they almost sound like Vulcans from Star Trek, the logic people, And so their understanding of emptiness and the nature of mind all comes from that. But then the other 2 traditions are more practice-oriented. One of them is the Nyingma tradition, which was the oldest tradition. And their highest form of meditation on this reality, this ultimate reality, is called Dzogchen, or the Great Perfection. And in order to really, really practice it and understand it, you have to undergo training by a Dzogchen master. And for that, you have to do a lot of what they call preliminary practices. So just reading about it as like an armchair book, it's going to be really hard to understand what Dzogchen really is. So you would probably need to go study with one. And the other method and system is called Maha Mudra. Dzogchen is called the Great Perfection, but Mahamudra is called the Great Seal, like the seal of authenticity on a document. That's the tradition of our lineage, the Kagyu lineage. So I can't teach Dzogchen, but I can talk about how it is taught. But I know a lot more about Mahamudra than I do about Dzogchen. So I won't sit here saying I'm going to give you the Cliff's Notes or the short notes of Alan Watts's. I said Alan Watts, Alan Wallace's book. But I think that these topics are very difficult to understand, and that you should be patient with yourself, and not worry that you need to understand them before you practice, because you don't. You don't need to fully understand them. And if you find that a topic is a little too much for you, it is absolutely fine to set the book to the side and then read it after you've had your Mahamudra training, because that's something we can do here. Can't do Dzogchen training here, but we can do Mahamudra training here. And so that's, but we can talk about it. And I'll definitely talk about this difference when I give my little talk on it, but I definitely will talk about it.
I'm sorry for my confusion.
Sorry? Oh, that's
I'm sorry for my
okay.
confusion.
That's okay. What's great is that they actually, what my teacher told me was he said, you know, you don't have to study them both. He said, just pick one and study that all the way to the end first, and then go back and get the other one. He said, because if you study Mahamudra all the way through, then you can go back, and Dzogchen's not that hard. So he said, then that way you can train in both.
I see. Do you think that would be a better start to?
Sorry?
Would it be a better way to do it before Mahamudra before?
It just, to do what?
To do Mahamudra before?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, you know, from my point of view, yes, because we're here. But different people have different karma. So you might have karma with that and not with this. So everybody's going to find out, you know. But if the book interests you and you like it, go for it. One of the teachers that founded our center that actually nurtured our center after Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche founded it was Bardo Toka Rinpoche. And his theory about reading about other traditions was, read widely. Read widely, but do your practice. You know, read widely, but remember what your practice is and do your practice, which I think is actually kind of nice because it gives you the freedom to read about anything. Yeah. But you also have to understand that if you read about stuff that you're not 100% sure you understand, asking questions like this one is perfect. Yeah.
I'm a very early beginner, so I'm just absorbing information, and I'm just reading a lot of books and podcasts and stories.
I totally get this because so many people come to me and they love to read about Buddhism, but they don't know anything, right? They think that Buddhism is one thing, but they don't know about the two schools, the southern schools and the northern schools, and then they don't know that there are different southern schools and different northern schools, and that they all have different systems of practice. And that they're all good, but they're different. And that it's really just good to pick one and do it. So it's like that. But it's great. But like Bardo Rinpoche said, study widely. Study anything you have an interest in, but remember and do your practice.
Thank you.
Hey, all right. No, this is great. Okay, this will be the last question. I wasn't watching my time, sorry. Hello.
Hello. One thing that I would like to know more about is, what are all these things on the shrine? Mm-hmm. I would love to have a talk about
we had them moved in this year.
What all these things are, because there's so much more than there used to be.
Yeah.
And I recognize some things, and I don't recognize others.
You got it. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, uh-huh. I got you. Yeah, I got you. And I got to tell you what, we moved all these in, April of last year. I think it was April of last year. We had the cabinets built and moved all the furniture in and moved all the statues in, many of which had been down in a basement behind the screen, And so we were just feeling mostly relief that we finally got it. We finally got them in place. But you're absolutely right. That's something we should think about. Kathy Jackson has already given a series of talks about the 6 statues that are in the center. And not the very center, but the 6 statues on either side of Buddha Vajradhara. And I've given talks on Buddha Vajradhara, but we haven't gone deep into the cabinets yet. And we could do a whole series on it if we wanted to. And I think that might be the way to do it, is just to do a whole series that's titled, introduction to the KTC shrine, and then just do one at a time, one section at a time. That would be kind of fun. Yeah, because we have one of our volunteers is working on a visual tour document for us, where they took a picture of everything, and now they're going to like put a key and say who's where and everything. But the problem is not everybody's settled yet, because we have at least one more statue. Actually, we've got 2 more statues we're going to add to this display. And then we're building a shrine because somebody donated the money. We're building a shrine in the classroom, and we've got a statue coming for that too. And then somebody those of you who went by our lobby door, the downstairs lobby door, saw a Buddha sitting on a stool there. That Buddha is getting ready to go to KTD Monastery and be filled for our children's shrine. So somehow, it's not raining statues, but we've got quite a few. Thank you. It's kind of what's been happening. So let's gather together. And so this is where I get to tell you that I'm going to be off for the next couple of Sundays. Actually, I think I'm off the next 3 Sundays, but we'll take care of you. Lama Tom will be here next week, and then we have Eric Weinberg and Marcus Casey and so on to give talks. So I'll be seeing you again after the first week in April. So I'll be back, but I gotta go do some stuff. But I'll be thinking about all of you and taking you with me where I go. Okay, so we'll gather together all the goodness we've talked about today and dedicate it through just reading this dedication in English. By this merit, may all attain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy, wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. The courageous Manjushri, who knows everything as it is, Samantabhadra, who also knows in the same way, and all the bodhisattvas, that I may follow in their path, I completely dedicate all this virtue. Okay, thanks everyone. Be safe out there, and we'll see you next time.